It's a new era in D.C. with a new head coach in Dan Quinn and general manager in Adam Peters and a new quarterback in Jayden Daniels. The trio hoping to put an end to 7 straight seasons without a winning record for these Commanders. And for Daniels, he's the Commanders' highest drafted quarterback in a minute. Robert Griffin III, went second in 2012. And the highest before that, Heath Schuler, back in 1994. Brilliantly Boring, presented by PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865. And through the magic of travel, we had Jonathan Jones, our lead NFL insider, in Santa Clara yesterday for Niners camp. Today, he's in Ashburn, Virginia, with the Washington Commanders, as we now welcome him in. JJ, good to see you, and nice to see that you made it safe and sound. Want to start by talking to you about this quarterback, Jayden Daniels, as the new era, the new face of the franchise here in Washington. There's been a lot of excitement about what Daniels brings to this team. Now that you're at camp, what's the feeling there? What's the vibe with Daniels there?
Before practice and talking with folks as I prepared for this trip coming out to Ashburn, Virginia, a lot of folks are kind of whispering it to me. They're like, man, he's kind of the real deal. You know, that's what they're seeing so far from him. Now, understand and appreciate that this is a franchise that really hasn't had quality quarterback play in some time. So when you see a solid to good quarterback, it's going to feel differently for a lot of the folks here. But that's what it does. It feels differently for the Washington Commanders. You can see his explosiveness out here. I saw him take a bootleg off to the left. He ran up the sideline, waited on his blockers, and exploded through. Of course, he's in a yellow non-contact jersey. Don't worry, he could have been in any color. They weren't going to contact him because he took it to the house. And so you see that in talking with folks here, they say, you know, he's putting it up in the air. He's playing the position of quarterback. It's not just throwing the football. It's not just running with the football. It is playing the position of quarterback. He's growing as a leader. He's learning some of those traits. What really sold the Commanders on Jayden Daniels throughout the pre-draft process, at the number 2 overall pick, they knew that Caleb Williams was going to go 1 overall to the Chicago Bears. But in talking with folks from his high school years to Arizona State, remember, of course, he transferred to LSU. The stories were consistent on Jayden Daniels. He was a very consistent person and ball player, and they felt very comfortable about how he could lead this team at a young age. And so that is why they have entrusted the future of the franchise in Jayden Daniels here moving forward for the 2024 Commanders.
And, of course, they have the new head coach in Dan Quinn, who, of course, had a successful stint in Dallas, and he has success as a head coach. Remember him back in Atlanta. He took that team to a Super Bowl. JG, you had a chance to talk to Dan Quinn. What's your initial impression of him and how he's going to impact this franchise and their outlook moving forward?
So if you go back, first of all, he's learned plenty as a head coach, right? He had those early successful years with Atlanta, and then things started to kind of taper off. And then he goes to the Dallas Cowboys, and in each successive year, the defense got better, points per game, yards allowed per game, right? And so I come here and I see a team that's a little talent depleted. And of course, you know, they were forced to trade off 2 of their pass rushers in Chase Young and Montez Sweat at the trade deadline. But this is a defense that I kind of thought, all right, he's going to take it over, and they should take those steps. They need a little bit more talent. There's no doubt. And look, he's not calling the defense. Joe Witt Jr. is going to be calling this defense, but make no mistake, of course, it will be a Dan Quinn defense, one that is going to be anchored in the middle by Bobby Wagner. This is probably the strength of the team, their front 7. No exact position group. They like the interior of their defensive line, and then whenever Bobby Wagner decides to hang it up, you can go ahead and add 5 years, and then we will be covering his Hall of Fame induction speech in Canton, who is still doing it, right, and doing it at an incredibly high level, an all-pro level, led the league in tackles last season. So you have a more experienced head coach. You have a coach who, I asked him, if you're not calling the defense out here, what sort of head coach are you going to be? And it's going to be a CEO. It's going to be a game manager sort of head coach, someone who fully understands game situations. What I'm talking about, 2-minute, 4-minute drives, end of half, end of game. They are practicing this out here more than the average NFL team, Dan Quinn estimated. And it is because that is, of course, where games are won and lost. And you have a rookie quarterback, and you have a defense that you are trying to establish an identity and a culture with. And so if these games are won and lost in the final 4 minutes of each half, then why don't you practice those a whole lot more? They actually poached a personnel executive from the NFL office, and Dave Gardy, who is going to help Dan Quinn, be in his ear on game day about challenges, about timeouts, about what refs are thinking in a certain moment. They are so hyper-focused here on the details, and I think it has to be refreshing for so many with this organization.
Well, and as we've often talked about with this NFL, details matter, and you mentioned this defense, certainly a defense that there's only really one direction for them to go. It's up. And they're also a team that's loaded with veteran talent. You mentioned Bobby Wagner. They brought in Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz. You know, there are guys on this roster who feel maybe they have something left to prove. Certainly in the case of Eckler, that's probably the case. Is there a feeling that this veteran presence, there's a good balance there, JJ, that they can maybe give this team a little bit of an edge?
You know, I think that's such a great phrase to use, Jeremy, that good balance, right? You have the vets and you have quality vets. Zach Ertz, who is one of the best veterans in the NFL. Bobby Wagner, again, a fantastic veteran who, again, is doing it at an all-pro level as recently as just a few months ago. You have Austin Eckler, who he has a chip on his shoulder. Make no mistake about it, had the worst season of his career last year, dealt with a high ankle sprain basically as soon as the season started, and that led to a season where the Los Angeles Chargers said, okay, we're going to have to jettison you. They have Jamison Crowder, who not entirely sure he's going to work his way into the top 3 of the wide receiver group. There's still a team that's looking for someone to show up as that number 2 receiver. Maybe it will ultimately be Jahan Dotson behind Terry McLaurin. But it is a very good group. Also on the coaching staff side as well, you have Dan Quinn, who has brought in some guys that he is familiar with, Ken Norton Jr., Joe Witt Jr. as well, but he brings in a Cliff Kingsbury to run that offense. It's a good mix throughout here. It's not that all-star coaching staff that we saw I think it was a year ago with the Carolina Panthers, where you just have this hodgepodge of different ideas and it's destined to fail. This seems to have some cohesion. Dan Quinn, in those years in Dallas, thinking about what he would do differently in his next job, well, he seems to have figured it out, at least for now. And so I really like how they have built this team. You know, they hope that they hit in this draft class with general manager Adam Peters. They used a couple of draft picks that they were gifted from the previous regime, and they're going to continue to build. Eventually, these vets are going to age out, and they hope that the young guys that they drafted in 24, that they will draft in 25, will have learned a thing or two from all those veterans and can keep that identity and culture moving forward.
Yeah, some positive vibes around the Commanders. Not something that we're certainly used to, but certainly what we're feeling with this this change in regime here. The Commanders win total, JJ, it's set at 6.5. Do you think that that's a good number based on where this team is at right now?
I understand why it's there, and here's another reason why I understand it's there. We haven't talked about the offensive line, and I'm concerned right now as it stands about the offensive line. At left tackle, is it going to be Cornelius Lucas, or is it going to be Brandon Coleman, the rookie, there at left tackle? On the right tackle side, are we going to see Andrew Wiley show up, or is it going to be the loser of the left tackle battle? They brought in Tyler Biadasz from the Dallas Cowboys as a free agent to be the center. I'm really kind of concerned about the edges out there. Also, what is the pass rusher situation outside of Dorrance Armstrong going to look like? That was kind of, I was amusing myself because, like, man, where's the pass rushers on this team? It's like, oh, right, they had to trade Chase Young and Montez Sweat at the trade deadline. You want to see Emmanuel Forbes take that next step, and he has added about 17 pounds, both of muscle and just weight, that he absolutely had to in order to be a starting cornerback in this league. Hopefully he can get his hands on a few more balls like he did in college, understanding that there will be deficiencies elsewhere in his game. And then, of course, there's Jayden Daniels, who I talked with Dan Quinn and Austin Eckler and Bobby Wagner about this. If there was a knock on Jayden Daniels throughout his Heisman Trophy winning campaign, it was that he took a lot of hits. Took a lot of hits in the pocket in the form of sacks, but then also when he scrambled on design runs, just go down. just slide. These guys are fast. You are very fast. These guys in this league are fast, and they're also a whole lot bigger than you, and the hits are going to hurt a lot more. And we see it year after year with all these quarterbacks who have the gift of their legs, who just don't necessarily understand what that's going to feel like. He's going to play in the first preseason game. I expect him to play throughout the preseason. He's finally going to take off that non-contact jersey, and hopefully he will have learned to slide a little bit, to live to see another day, to go out of bounds. And so if that's what people are hedging on, I understand it, because until I see it, it is certainly a concern that I have for the young man in his rookie season.
Washington Commanders will open their season week 1 in Tampa Bay against Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Our lead NFL insider Jonathan Jones in Ashburn, Virginia at Commanders camp for us today. Great stuff, JJ. And our season on CBS begins on September the 8th. We have 6 games on the schedule for you, including Houston at Indy, Jacksonville at Miami, and Vegas visiting the Chargers as Jim Harbaugh makes his return to the NFL. And, of course, games streaming on Paramount+.